What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com, and I am back today with another betting show as we have a metric ton of mixed martial arts this weekend, and luckily for me, a lot of it is Irish-centric. I suppose the UFC headline is the biggest fight of the weekend with Garry taking on Carlos Parates, and I would. Maybe I'm a bit biased here, but the most fun card of the weekend for me anyway is Cage Warriors 188, which goes down in Dublin. So that's going to be a real showcase of a lot of the young up and coming Irish talent, of which there is a good number on that card. I believe there's 19 different representatives of Irish MMA on that, so very, very good. But we also have Octagon, we also have KSW, so there's a lot of stuff going on this weekend and a lot to talk about, and I've taken bets from 3 different organizations this weekend. I waited as long as I could to get some odds. I will say, first off, the odds on this are correct at the time of recording. They may adjust, and I've even seen, like, literally they came up 15-20 minutes ago and they've already adjusted, so I've adjusted my prices. But again, these prices are at the time of recording and may adjust as we go. One of them especially, we'll get to that, but people are going to have to take that one early because it will go if it's not already gone by the time you're listening to this. But anyway, we will get into all of that. But before we do, let's always recap last week. Again, a bit of a 50-50 week. We hit 2 bets. We missed on 2 bets, but we did hit 2 plus money bets, which was pretty good. We got Alfie Davis at plus 114, his beautiful spinning short elbow against Clay Collard. Think the analysis and the call in that fight was pretty correct. I would say the same for Dalton Rasta. I'd even go further for Dalton Rasta and say he exceeded my expectations. It was a great performance there. I gave him a plus 106. I think it was closer to maybe minus 120 or something like that by the time of the fight, even a little bit more maybe. But again, that was the correct price at the time of recording. And then the other 2 bets that didn't hit were Kasang and I and Shipman. Shipman fight was pretty close. I think he kind of only for sure lost that in the last few minutes of it. And the flyer of the week then was Vinicius Cincy at plus 525. I'll be honest, I'm pretty happy with that flyer choice because I wouldn't go as far as to say he should have won the fight, but he absolutely could have. He kept throwing flying knees. He did win a round on all 3 judges' cards, if I'm not mistaken. He ended up getting finished late. But if he hadn't thrown those flying knees in all 3 rounds, I think Bryn Primus could have been in trouble, and that plus 525 bet was probably looking pretty good at one stage, but wasn't to be. It wasn't to be. And look, that's the problem when you're betting like that. You know, it's a flyer for a reason, I suppose. So there you go. Right, let's get to this week because there is a lot to talk about, and we'll start with a fight that I'll be honest, I've done about 17 podcasts this week, which normally happens on an Ian Garry week and normally happens on an Irish card week. When the 2 of them happen on the same week, it's even exacerbated. But one fight I haven't talked about at all yet this week, and I'll be honest, I sneakily kind of threw it in there because I want to talk a little bit about it, but it is a good price. Now, this is the sort of price that I would normally never give, but I think this is such, and this is the right word to use here, freak price. I'm giving it anyway. So, bet number 1 this week is Mariusz Pudzianowski at minus 300 to beat Eddie Hall over in KSW. Now, people know I don't give minus 300 bets out willy-nilly unless it's part of a parlay. But I just feel like this one is probably a minus 300 you won't get anywhere else. We're talking about a guy in Mariusz Pudzianowski who has fought for years now. Okay, he started out obviously as an ex-strongman in MMA, and he was fighting ex-strongmen, but in the end he ended up fighting real fighters, and he lost some and he won some, but he won some. He beat real fighters, and can fight. Look, does he have the best cardio in the world? Does he have the best anything in the world? No, but Mariusz Pudzianowski is a legitimate fighter. He became a legitimate fighter in his career. Had a lot of fights, has had a lot of wins. And on the other side of it, Eddie Hall, is he a legitimate fighter? I don't think so. No, respect Eddie Hall. He's good in there with Mariusz Pudzianowski. So, he's a tough guy, and fair play to him. I don't mean I'm actually a big Eddie Hall fan. I like Eddie Hall an awful lot. So I don't mean any disrespect or anything. In fact, I respect him an awful lot, and he deserves, I wouldn't do it. He deserves an awful lot of respect for stepping in there. But he is, he's had, one boxing match, 1 2-on-1 against two lads who are like 110 pounds, and that's it. Now, did he look the worst boxer in the world in that fight with Thor? I thought he looked okay. I didn't think he looked horrible. But is he going to be on the level of Pudzianowski? I don't think so. I just think Pudzianowski's going to go in here. He, who'll have the strength advantage? Maybe at this stage of their lives, Eddie Hall. But I think Pudzianowski is a guy who can throw a letter. If he needs to take Eddie Hall down, he probably can take him down. He knows what to do in an MMA fight. He's been in many of them now at this stage. And although, granted, he hasn't looked maybe amazing in some of his last fights, he is getting on, no doubt about it. I think he should have more than enough to beat someone like Eddie Hall. And, respect Eddie, as I said, 100%, but Pudzianowski is, a legitimate MMA fighter. I think he has earned the right to say that. And for him to be going in there against someone who is a complete novice, he has to be the favourite. And in my opinion, the reason I'm giving this bet is he should be a bigger favourite. But okay, there's all the betting stuff done. What a fight this is going to be. Just two big meaty men slapping meat in the middle of the KSW cage. This is what I'll be buying the pay-per-view. This is what we tuned in for. I can't wait for this. We'll all be Rebecca Hitman on Saturday night because, it's all well and good, having your John Jones against Gustafsson and your tactical back and forth battles between Volkanovski and Makhachev. But at the end of the day, can you turn away from this? Can you turn away? No, I can't turn away from this. So, bet number 1 of the week, Mariusz Pudzianowski -300. Right. We'll touch on a couple more of the KSW bets at the end of the show. But to bet number 2, so the next, I'm going to give you 2 Cage Warriors bets and 2 UFC bets. So next 2 are the Cage Warriors bets. I'm going to the main event first. And again, this price, it only came out, I would say 45 minutes ago to an hour ago, and it's already kind of changed then. So it's James Sheehan is my bet for the week. It started out at plus 115. It's at minus 115 now. He's fighting Justin Burlinson. So take from that what you may. Maybe it leaving out. Maybe it could come into even money. Maybe it go a little bit further out to a minus 130, minus 140 or something like that. I'll be honest, anything up to minus 160, 175, I think I'll be taking James Sheehan in that. But the price I have it at the moment is minus 115 for James Sheehan to win his fight against Justin Burlinson. And the reason I'm going for this is I just think it's his time now for James Sheehan. I think he has no relation as well, by the way. I think he has put on a really, really, really great run of fights over the last few years. Like, if you don't know about James Sheehan, he opened up his career and he went 1-2. But his 2 losses, his first fight was the Matthew Bonner, who went on, I think, in the next year or 2 after that to be the Cage Warriors champion. He fought him in his debut. And in his third fight, he fought Garry, who was already very, very good, even as an amateur and all that. So he lost those 2 fights, but he went to a decision with both of them. Went to a decision with Garry, and an interesting fight. I think Ian got injured in that fight, and he kind of just wrestled him, and for a long while, that was probably Ian's toughest fight. But James Sheehan, in his 5 wins after that, he won 5 in a row, and he looked so good, improving in all of them. Ended up getting a few knockouts. He ended up getting a submission. Like, his win against O'Neal Brown was a split decision, but a very, very good win there. Beat Karl Michalak, and Jamie Richardson fought for the title as well. And he was looking so good. Then he fought Elliott in Dublin. And again, a rough and tough fight. Some people thought he won that fight. I had it for Oban myself, but a very, very good fight against a guy now who, I know he did Oban had a fight announced today. Oban's probably on the verge of being a ranked welterweight in the UFC, and this was only almost 2 years ago to the day that James Sheehan fought him. It was very, very close. Got in there, won 2 fights since, looked really good against Ali Sanatani, and obviously is the champion, beat Daniel Conrad by arm triangle choke in the 4th round, so he's well able to go and well able to keep fighting late, so I think with all that, I went through his whole record because he's gotten better and better and better. And he's a very good technical fighter who can also get into war, who's happy to get bloody and is well able to fight. And he'll need that against a guy like Justin Berlin soon, who, with a very similar record, 9-2, only lost to Rhys McKee and Johan Lainez, both who have fought in the UFC. He was in the Dana White Contender Series. Obviously, that was the Lainez fight. He was unlucky, maybe not to get maybe an easier ride through that. Ended up losing pretty quickly in that one. But he's come back, and as I said, Rhys McKee beat him since. But he's won 3 other fights outside of that. One of which again against Jamie Richardson, the former title challenger, and then Daniel Skibinski as well, who is as legit as they come. But he hasn't been that active, I suppose, in the last year. He's only fought once in 23, once in 24, and now he's back here, obviously in 2025, to fight again. But this is, it's the fight that you would want if you're a James Sheehan fan or coach or whatever, a guy that's going to come on and, and attack you and allow you to use your beautiful jab and your counter strikes and your ability to control. Now, it's a tough fight because Burlinson will not stop it. He will keep going and going and going. But if you believe in James Sheehan's improvements over the last few years, which I absolutely do, I think this sort of fight is the fight that will suit him. Like sometimes for James Sheehan, if a fighter is wrestling and making it a grapple fest or whatever it might be, James is well able to grapple as well. I'm not saying that, but that sort of style wouldn't suit it as much. Or if a fella's fighting right on the outside, that's not going to suit him. What's going to suit him, as I said, his jab, his 1-2s, his technical striking is very, very good. A guy like Burlinson, who's maybe a little less technical, who does get hit when he comes in, is the sort of matchup at that technical striker who is well able to get into a brawl as well and well able to survive in a brawl. It should be manna for heaven for him, really. Now, as I said again, you get in there with Burlinson, you go for a brawl, you go to war. You usually don't win against Burlinson, Now, some people have. Rhys McKee obviously did. But for James Sheehan, I think he can actually win both ways. I really, really do. Now, I wouldn't rule Burlinson out at all, but the pick for me, the second I saw this fight, is like, okay, that's a good matchup for James Sheehan. He's at home as well. He'll have the Dublin crowd behind him. I believe this is like the Oban Elliott matchup, except it's going to be, I think Oban, what I mean by like the Oban Elliott matchup, Oban is powerful and dangerous, but Oban, I think, is a more technical fighter, whereas Burlinson will be less technical than Oban was, more open than Oban was, and I think James is more technical than he was before, so can come on the right side of that and maybe do to Burlinson what Oban Elliott did to him. So I really like him. I like him at that price. As I said, that could adjust, but -115 right now is really, really good, and I'm taking James Sheehan at that price. Right, the second bet, and I'll just get the updated price of this, because when I saw this price coming out at the start, I was kind of shocked. But Matthew Elliott against Kenny Mokahana is bet number 3. He actually opened up as a +115 underdog. That fight, price on the fight went away very, very quickly, and he's now -150, and I'm absolutely still taking him at -150 in his fight against Kenny Mokahana. This to me is, and no disrespect to Kenny or anything, Kenny probably knows this himself coming in here, but this to me is a fight that should be, and again, I say this in the hopes that the people making the betting lines aren't maybe listening. This is a fight that should probably be -500 to Matthew Elliott. And maybe, plus 375 for Kenny or something like that, or maybe a little bit more even. Kenny in his last 2 fights has gone in and he has been out-wrestled by Josh O'Connor and Ibrahimov. Now, both top talents, and maybe people could argue that Matthew Elliott isn't as top a talent as them. I don't know myself if I would agree with that, to be honest. I think Matthew Elliott is a top talent, but what all those three lads have in common is they're really, really, really good wrestlers. And Kenny has absolutely struggled, obviously, against those lads. He himself, he can wrestle. There's no doubt about it. He can, he has good takedown defense at times. We've seen him even in those fights. He showed it. But the one takedown against guys like that who are well able to stay on top of you, that you do give up a round or two even, is tough. And it's really tough to come back from. And then Kenny has a tendency as well to rush it a little bit at the start of the next round, or when he does get up, ends up getting taken down again. And when you're fighting Matthew Elliott, that is a bad thing to do, and it's a bad matchup as well when you're susceptible to wrestling. Like, Matthew is a very, very good wrestler. I was talking to, and if you haven't checked it out, Andy Stevenson was on with me this week on the preview show, and I think Andy said in that he has competed for Team GB in both wrestling and judo, so he's a very, very, very good grappler. And look, watching his fights, you'd know the Scott Pedersen fight, that was a great win, the first fight of his career. He's only lost today, it was to Ryan Shelley. A lot of people think he won that fight. I do think he won that fight as well. It was very close, but the reason he lost that fight is he wasn't active enough on the bottom, and since then, definitely something has improved. His striking has got a lot better as well. Now, do I think he'll be striking with Kenny? I don't think he'll strike with Kenny. I think he could. I think he's a good fighter, but Kenny's very dangerous on the feet. If people don't know Kenny as well, his brother is Franz Mambo, who is a very, very good fighter and a smashing fighter on the feet as well. But I think this is look, fair play to Kenny for taking this sort of fight after losing 2 fights against lads with a similar skill set to Matthew Elliott in terms of the grappling. Now, in the striking, maybe it's different. I think Matthew's striking has improved an awful lot, as I said. But is it brave or foolhardy? Is it brave or foolhardy? I would say, no, do you know what? I lean on brave, and the reason I lean on brave is how much of an opportunity you're getting. Kenny's fought on Bellator, PFL. He went what has he got? 2-1 on Bellator, so it's a pretty good record. But is he going to get that opportunity again after losing 2 in a row? It's going to be tough to do it. Glad to see him in Cage Wars. I think it's a good fit for him. I probably, I not an awful lot of respect for Ian Dean, and I don't think Ian Dean probably would have made this matchup, but it feels like both lads wanted this matchup, so they made it. But Matthew Elliott has to be a massive, massive favourite here, and I'm definitely picking him to win that one. Right, so those are 2 Cage Wars bets. Again, we'll talk more about the Cage Wars prices at the end of this here podcast. But for now, let's give our 2 UFC bets. And the last of the 4 bets before the Flier is I'm gonna go for maybe not the best price bet in the world, but I like it an awful lot. So I'm going for Mingyang Zhang to beat Anthony Smith via let me just check exactly what it is again. Via TKO KO at -200. Now, again, hold on. Let me just make sure I have that completely right here. Yes, that is completely right. I was looking at him to win it via first round TKO at +115. I do think that will happen, to be honest. And I usually waver for the plus money bets, but you know what? I'm going to be a little bit conservative here today. I feel like, I do often go too much the other way with the plus money bets, but -200 I think is a pretty good price on that. I think he's definitely going to knock Anthony Smith out, like without a shadow of a doubt. I saw a bit of a back and forth with a couple of the Sherdog lads who don't reckon he's that good, and maybe we'll find out. But look, he's been in the UFC for 3 fights. He's won 3 first round knockouts. He has a lot of first round knockouts outside of there. All his losses in his career, I suppose, were 2019 and back. Like, to me, he looks like just an absolute beast. He's only 26 years of age. He's big and tall at 6'2". Smith is tall as well. He's 6'3", 6'4". But I don't think Smith has the ability to take shots like he once did. I don't think, he's called himself the Lionheart. I don't think he has the Lionheart anymore. I just don't think he's at a place in his career. He's calling this his retirement fight and all. Now I'm not really one of those lads who are like, oh, if he's 1 foot out the door and all this sort of, and I've never been that sort of. I don't believe in that because people retire all the time in MMA and come back. But in his last few fights, like the Dominic Reyes fight, was that the fight he gave up in? He's beaten Victor Petrino and Ryan Spann over the last few years, but they're the only 2 fights he's won in the last 4 years. Losing Ankalaev, Walker, Roundtree, Delidza, and giving up against Reyes. Zhang would be, I suppose, a step down for them, but is he really? Like, will we say that in a year's time or 2 years' time? Maybe not, but I think he is definitely good enough to beat Anthony Smith. I think he's definitely good to knock him out. And I like, it's one of those fights as well. I feel like Anthony Smith survives in fights sometimes because of his, moxie, and he's smart, and he kind of, he covers up at the right time, and, he will go to a position where most people won't go to when he get, so most lads, they take a shot and they try to stay on their feet as much as they can, and they end up getting wobbled and take more and getting, whereas Anthony Smith will take a shot and he'll not go down, but he'll go to a more defensive position and wait and hold. And I think this is all a compliment that I'm saying here. I think against Zhang, he won't have the opportunity to do that. I think he hits too hard. I think he'll probably catch him with a head kick or something like that. I would be very surprised if Mingyang Zhang didn't put Anthony Smith away in the first round. I think it's going to be a demolition job. I think minus 200 is a pretty good price there. Any hope for Anthony Smith? Again, maybe dragging him into deep waters, maybe taking him down, but I don't see it. So minus 200 Mingyang Zhang to get the knockout against Anthony Smith. Right. The Flier, the main event, Ian Garry against Praches, and we've only hit one Flier this year, lads, as we all know, and that was an Irish Flyer, an Irish Flyer and an Irish fighter to win by submission. And here we go again. Ian Garry to win by submission at plus 600. That is the bet here. I think it's a pretty good bet, to be honest, because if you look at Ian Garry over the last few fights, he almost submitted Rahmanov. He almost submitted MVP. Was it Jeff Nee or Magny? He almost submitted maybe both of them as well. One of them anyway. Very, very close. He has one submission in his career. Early doors. He got close to submitting Jack Grant as well. He has been working with Damian Maia, as we all know. The ground game is definitely improving. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And then you look at Carlos Praches, the other side of it. There's no doubt about it. Prates is a stand-up fighter. He's very, very good in the in that realm. But on the ground, there's 6 submissions in his career. He's submitted 3 people, and he's gotten submitted 3 times himself as well. Now, again, at the Fight Nerds and all that, I'm sure that part of his game is improved. But would I be massively surprised if Ian Garry took him down, ended up getting the back, and ended up submitting him? This is 5 rounds as well. You look back through Prates' record. Has he ever gone that distance? No, he hasn't. For Ian Garry, he won 5 rounds with Shakat Rakhmanov and almost won that fight last time out. He won 5 rounds 4 years ago in Cage Warrior. So he won that fight. He is used to doing it. His last 4 fights in a row have all gone to a decision, and his cardio has looked amazing. So I think since he went vegan as well, there are more thoughts that mightn't help, but it looks like it has. The only fight I think he struggled in was the one after. Was it the Jeff Neal fight after he had pneumonia and all that? So I think he's been looking really, really good. And I know people have, and this might actually be to my point and to my bet, people have kind of criticized him for like, oh, you're talking about knocking lads out and then you're taking them down and winning decisions. Well, that'll probably be a good thing if you want to back the submission here against Carlos Prates, because if he does take him down and does have him on his back, get on his back, let's say, and wear Prates out, there's 2 things that'll happen there. Prates is less likely to knock him out and more likely to be taken down and submitted if he doesn't get submitted straight away. So I really, really like that bet. Really like it, to be honest, and that's the Flier of the week. But just on the fight as a whole, I think it's an interesting fight. You're betting it. Let's just have a quick look at the odds in general. Prates is a plus 110 underdog. Ian Garry best price minus 125. Honestly, that was when I looked at the cards this week. That was my first bet. I had obviously to pick a Flier out of somewhere, but that was the first bet. Ian Garry at minus 125. I think that's a fantastic bet. As I said, I have a lot of respect for Prates, and I think he's very, very good. But Ian is big and tall and long and technical. Prates, obviously, that left hand, the southpaw is going to be an issue for Ian Garry. But if Prates lands a left hand, he can knock anyone out. There's no doubt about it. No matter if it's Ian Garry or whoever it might be. But Ian is very, very good defensively. He has gotten caught in fights, but you notice when Ian Garry gets caught in fights, it's like, oh Jesus, he took that one big shot in a 15-minute fight. We remember the one shot he took. A lot of other fighters might take 15 big shots, and then we go, oh, Ian took a big shot. Geez, he's defensive issues. Well, not really. Who goes out there into a fight and doesn't take a shot? It's, and this is a weird one. I always make the comparison. It's like Premier League goalkeepers. The ones at the top of the league might only have one save to make in a game. The ones at the bottom of the league might have 15 saves to make. Who's a better goalkeeper? Well, it's the lad who can make that one save and keep the clean sheet is better than the lad who can make 15 saves and leave 3 in, maybe. And I think that's the case with Ian Garry here, if that makes sense. Okay, might take one shot, but he's not taking 15 like some other lads in there. And I think that sort of thing, if you catch my drift there, if he can control it on the outside, use his jab, tire Prates out a little bit, push him against the cage, get those takedowns. I think it'll open him up more on the feet. I think it'll open him up more for takedowns. And in the end, it might open him up more to be submitted as well. So those are the 5 bets of the week. Okay, let's talk about some of the other prices from some of the other places. Let's start with KSW. As I said, the biggest fight of the weekend, the literally biggest fight of the weekend, Eddie Hall and Pudzianowski. We talked about that. Interesting fight against Adrian Barczynski. He's a big favorite against Grybish over there. I like Artur Szpilka is fighting Errol Zimmerman. Interesting. I like Szpilka as the underdog there, plus 180. I love Matters. Plus 130. I love Matters Flaminas. That was another bet I wanted to say to people as well. He's minus 210 there. I do think he'll win that fight. Simon Bajor fighting Augustus Sakai. Bajor is plus 285 and Sakai is minus 460. Now, I think that's worth the underdog bet there. I think it might be worth the underdog bet there. I don't think Sakai has been amazing over the last few years, so that's one I would definitely look at there. Then we've Octagon. Unfortunately for Octagon, again, a few of the big fights fell out here, but what we do have is Dominic Humberger against Samuel Krzysztofic. Krzysztofic is the favourite there, minus 145. Again, Humberger's the type of guy, he's not the best, most technical fighter in the world, but he wins fights. I don't know, he's in his new promotion now after that big move from KSW and the controversy of that, where they took his bonus away from him and everything, and they gave it to a dog's charity and all this stuff. You want to be winning fights if you do that. So yeah, we'll jump on Humberger there at plus 105. Very interesting fight, Ion Sardu against Krzysztof Jotko. Sardu's looked good recently. I might go for him there at minus 150. I do like that on him. If you're a Jotko fan and you think, Jotko's obviously reached a pretty high level, plus 110, not a bad price there at all. Kartal and Seppo in, interesting price as well on Kartal, plus 165. I'd probably jump on that, to be honest, as well. Katrina Delidze and Mallory Martin, both big prices here. One minus 300, the other minus 320 respectively. Daniel Skivor trying to get back to that light heavyweight talk is minus 260. I like him at that price, to be honest. And then Mate Cortez, big fan of his. I think he's good. He's minus 150 and he's fighting with Andrei Kalashnik. I like that price too. Right, so Cage Warriors. We talked about the main event. Obviously, I gave James Sheehan as one of my bets. John Allen, James Webb is the co-main event for the light heavyweight title. Alan is the favourite, minus 115. I watched a bit of him, and he's a very good fighter, and not massively surprised that he's the favourite, to be honest. But this is James Webb's promotion. You know, he's won a lot of fights in Cage Warriors over the last few years. I'd probably back. Sorry, James Webb is the favorite. James Webb is the favorite, minus 125, but just about. I'd probably go with Webb, but very close. Paddy McCarry's minus 1,000. I think he'd be winning that fight. Jer Harris is the favorite against Flier, who took the fight in short notice. Max Alley as well, a really good prospect, minus 350. Solomon Simon minus 550. I agree with all those prices. You know, if you want to bet them, throw on an accumulator. The one that kind of stands out a little bit for me is Tommy Langowski, plus 250 against Adam Darby, minus 400. Now, Langowski's a fast starter, and Darby's been knocked out very quickly before. Would you think about that maybe in that one? I do fancy Darby though to win it. I do think he'll win, but I'd have Darby probably closer to minus 250 in that one. I think that line is probably a tad bit off there. The only other thing, apart from, obviously, we talked about the Matthew Elliott one, the only other line that I think is a little bit or a large bit out there is Conor McCarthy minus 1,000 against Joshua Onwardy, plus 550. You know, Onwardy's taken on short notice. Conor McCarthy is, some might say, the best prospect in Ireland at the moment. I would probably be one of those, to be honest. But Onwardy is a lot more. He's a lot more fights, and he has a lot more experience, is the word I was looking for. And he's a very good fighter. This is a massive, massive, massive step up for Conor McCarthy. I think he'll win. I think he's good enough to do it. I'd probably have him closer to minus 150 than 1,000 against Joshua Onwardy. That price is way off. Way off. So much so that you probably should bet on Onwardy there. I do think McCarthy will win, but as I said, these prices are running out. That fight to go to a decision is a bet I'd like an awful lot. And maybe McCarthy to win the decision, but we'll see when it gets closer. So those are the big bets from those promotions in the UFC. I'll be honest, not a whole pile there. I always, whenever I see Jocelyn Edwards as a big enough favourite at minus 300, I always look at the opponent, Chelsea Chandler at plus 250. Now, probably not in this case, maybe, but that's that's what I always have a look at. We spoke about Anthony Smith is plus 400. Best price. Zhang is minus 485. One bet I was looking at, I actually had it in my bets and I took it out, is Onama and Chikadze not to go to a decision at plus 130. I like that bet. I think Chikadze, obviously, like, he hits very hard and he's a beast, as does Onama. But I think both of them can be susceptible as well. I think both of them can take a shot, and Chikadze especially he takes a lot, but it wears on him. Like, I think I might fancy Onama to get the finish there. Let's see, Onama knockout plus 440 best price there, wins inside the distance plus 225. I like that, but that plus 130 fight doesn't go to a decision. I like that in that one. One underdog bet I love. Nicholas Dalby plus 205 against Randy Brown. Randy Brown, a good fighter, and Randy Brown should beat Nicholas Dalby, but how many guys has Nicholas Dalby beaten that should beat him? A lot of them. I'm not backing Mikael Pereira after the last fight. Abus Magomedov plus 124 is definitely the bet for me there. Even though I'm a massive Pereira fan, I'm off the bandwagon for the moment. Another flyer here. Andre Muniz plus 460 against Ali Askarov. I'm not massively sold on Ali Askarov. I think he is a good fighter. I think he'll probably win, right? But plus 460 is not it for me at all. Another one as well. Matt Schnell retired. He was gone out the gate. He came back to fight Jimmy Flick. Now, I don't think Jimmy Flick is any great shake altogether, but plus 172 for Jimmy Flick. Matt Schnell minus 190. Not for me, Bill. Not for me there. So, yeah, I think there is definitely a few interesting prices, definitely a few interesting bets to get you going over the weekend. But for me, here are my 5 bets. Quick recap. Mariusz Pudzianowski, minus 300. James Sheehan, no relation, minus 115. Matthew Elliott, minus 150. Take that price if you can get it, because it'll be gone. Minus 200 for Zhang by a knockout. And plus 600 the flyer of the week. Ian Garry wins by submission. All right, everybody. Let me know your one bet for the week in the comment section below. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please bet responsibly. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.